to read something, and I'm obviously delighted to do that. I've always loved Iain's work, and when I was thinking what to read, I went back to, I think, what was my kind of entry text into Iain's work, and that's Lights Out of the Territory, which is a 1997 work. And I think Iain's work is that sort of perfect marriage of form and content, because there's a lot of literature that deals with walking in the city and kind of mirrors walking in the city. Of course, there's that tradition that goes back to the Surrealists, and there's W.G. Sebald, etc. But I think in Iain's case, it's just this sense of mirroring or capturing the experience of walking, or the derive, in a particular urban environment, and the different sensations, combined with the mind of a prodigious reader, aware of the connections, both intellectual, pop culture, in a particular text. And that's what I loved about Iain's works, and still do. So when I was deciding what exactly to read, I went back to 2004, when I actually spoke at a conference on Iain's work, which is at the University of Greenwich. I can't really remember what it was called. It might have been City Visions or something. And I remember you were keynote speaker, of course, and you spoke at the end. And I sat through many panels debating the various aspects of your work. But the reason I wanted to choose the passages I have from Lights Out of the Territory is that at the time I was working on a project on stalking. And my thesis was that the walker was the key figure of modernity. That if you think about how modernity operates and affects people, you can think about walking in the city. And many theorists have done this. But in post-modernity, it was more like the stalker, or the idea of being followed through the city, or being sort of propelled through the city. And that's when I was fascinated to read Lights Out of the Territory, but also a couple of the passages in particular. So I'm going to read those now. The first one is from the opening, which is kind of like a manifesto, I think, for walking and writing the city. So here goes. As newspapers have atrophied into the playthings of grotesque megalomaniacs, uselessly shrill exercises in mind control, so disenfranchised authors have been forced to adapt the walls to playful collages of argument and invective. Not the publicly displayed and quietly absorbed papers of the Chinese, but editorials of madness. Text that nobody is going to stop and read. Unchallenged polemics. My own patch in Hackney has been mercilessly colonised by competing voices from elsewhere. Kurds, Peruvians, Irish, Russians, Africans. Contour lines of shorthand rhetoric asserting the borders between different areas of influence. Graffiti could, I hoped, be read like a tide mark. In the course of our walk, we'd find precisely where the freedom of Derson Caritas gave way to the innocence of George Davis. Okay. Walking is the best way to explore and exploit the city. The changes, shirts, breaks in the cloud helmet, movement of light on water. Drifting purposefully is the recommended mode. Tramping asphalted earth in alert reverie, allowing the fiction of an underlying pattern to reveal itself. To the no-bullshit materialist, this sounds suspiciously like fin de siècle decadence, a poetic of entropy. But the born-again flaneur is a stubborn creature, less interested in texture and fabric, eavesdropping on philosophical conversation pieces than in noticing everything. Alignments of telephone kiosks, maps made from moss on the slopes of Victorian sepulchres, collections of prostitutes' cards, torn and defaced promotional bills for cancelled events at York Hall, visits to the homes of dead writers, bronze cast on war memorials, plaster dogs, beer mats, concentrations of used condoms, the crystalline patterns of glass shards surrounding an imploded BMW quarter-light window, meditations on the relationship between the brain damage suffered by the super middleweight boxer Gerald McLennan, lights out in the Royal London Hospital, Whitechapel, and the simultaneous collapse of Barings, bankers to the Queen. Walking, moving across a retreating townscape, stitches it all together, the illicit cocktail of bodily exhaustion and a raging carbon monoxide high. So that's the first passage. The second one comes from chapter 2 of Lights Out of the Territory, The Dog and the Dish. And there's a section called The Biggest Street Party Since the Death of Churchill, where Iain Sinclair and Mark Atkins take a walk on the 23rd of March 1995, during which they become strangely drawn to follow the funeral procession of Ronnie Cray from Bethnal Green to St Matthew's Church. They know where they're going, but they can't quite fathom out what their motivations are. Expectant crowds had gathered early, blue jeans and brown leather jackets set against the long coats of the minders, the jewellery, coiffures and dark glasses of the public mourners, local celebrities recognised only by their own. I decided to take Mark with me to follow the process on foot. The concept of strolling, aimless urban wandering, the flaneur, had been superseded. We had moved into the age of the stalker, journeys made with intent, sharp-eyed and unsponsored. The stalker was our role model, purpose hiking, not dawdling nor browsing, no time for the savouring of reflections in shop windows, admiration for Art Nouveau ironwork, attractive matchboxes rescued from the gutter. This was walking with a thesis, with a prey. The term stroller had in any case been discredited by its association with George Graham, the former manager of Arsenal Football Club. The stalker is a stroller who sweats, a stroller who knows where he is going, but not why or how. Andrew Duncan, in a review in the magazine Angel Exhaust, reads the work of the poet-sculptor Brian Catling in precisely these terms. The classic Catling theme is stalking, delicately, in a hush, as anxiety and hunger spiral out of control on either side. Catling's The Stumble Block, its index, published by Bookworks in 1990, is the stalker's urtext, a somatic investigation of the interface of dream and memory, present tense anomalies discovered in the laneways that divide Whitechapel from the glitzy husk of the new city. Debt corruptions and creative poverty assault the narrator as he stalks his pillar to the dispossessed. So Iain, as you light out for new territory, thanks for all you've done for us, and all the best.